So we've seen the Master Cheeks, but this week it's time to see that Master Beef. Yeah, this is the one where Chief fucks somebody. The series, episode 8, Allegiance. These are starting to sound like the Divergent series titles. It's brought to us by director Jonathan Lipsman and stars Pablo Schreiber, Natasha McKellen, and Olive Gray. John and Mackie come to terms with their shared vision. Halsey has one last chance to save her mission and herself. As things come to a head, everyone must choose a side. So this week's episode picks up right where the episode before last week left off, because, you know, last week, side mission. John and Mackie had a shared vision of the Halo ring when he touched the smaller artifact and just let go. So now he's decided to trust her and take her on walks in the park and shit. Now, granted, this whole scene right here is to show her that, hey, humanity, you know, those people that you're a part of that you've hated your entire life because they kind of treated you like shit when you were a kid, aren't all bad. There are nice places with humans in them. There are nice humans. So we get the feeling that Mackie is starting to kind of come over to this side. 2 episodes ago, I had mentioned I didn't really know what her character's motivation was because I felt like she was being pretty forthcoming with all the information, everything that was going on, everything that she was there to do, with the exception of killing everybody. Well, in this episode, it seems like she's kind of coming over. She's saying, you know, this human thing, maybe they're not all bad. Maybe I need to side with these guys. I've been on the wrong side this whole time. Now, while all that's going on, Halsey, who is still not off the fucking planet, is over here scheming away, trying to work her way back into the Spartan program and get her hands on the artifact. Her and her little pervy assistant developed this contact lens she could put in that when eye scanned, it'll show that she's actually her daughter, Miranda Keyes, so she can get access to all the stuff that she lost access to. So she starts to talk to Mackie through like this holographic entertainment center within her cell and tell her you should not give the artifact to the UNSC. So Mackie's like, okay, so we give it to the Covenant? She's like, no, you don't give it to the Covenant either. I love humans, I just don't think that they always have their best interest at heart. She says what you should do is get John the artifact and you guys bring it to me because together we could do something great. Mackie doesn't really care for this. She starts to see Halsey for what she is and says, yeah, no, I think you're trying to just become like a megalomaniacal kind of crazy person who's gonna rule the universe, so I'm not gonna do that. Now, around this time, we learned that another colony on another planet has been glassed and destroyed by the Covenant, and they are coming. So Master Chief, Captain Keyes, and the Admiral come together and say, we've got to do something. We can't just sit here and wait for them to get here. We've got to take the fight to them. So they say, how do we do that? And Chief says, we've got to trust Mackie. She is the key. She can speak this language. She's much more used to the artifact. Let's let her have access to it and she can lead us to the Covenant and take them out. They begrudgingly agree and say, okay, well, we'll at least try it, but you know, if she does anything funny, we're taking her out. In the meantime, Master Chief goes to see Mackie, and yeah, this is a scene that I'm not really sure how I feel about. He walks in, he tells all the guards, you know what, you're relieved, I got this shit. He goes in there, he talks to Mackie, and they don't really do a lot of talking. They do more horizontal limboing instead. Now, I understand why this is happening, especially by the end of the episode, I really understand why this has happened. These two characters have a connection. They are the only people that either of them are aware of, at least, in the universe that share this special connection, so I get why they would have a bit more of a connection. Both of them, as far as I could tell, are probably virgins. Master Chief probably hadn't had a lot of sexual contact in his life, especially prior to taking out that pill thing from his spine. And Mackie has lived with an alien race, so if she's had sexual contact, I'm sure that was just really fucking traumatic and weird. So, you know, human chemistry and all, I get why these two probably wanted to get together, and I do get why the show wants them together. They want to form this bond, so obviously, like shows do like this, when they tear them apart, there is something more, a driving force to get them together, or at least something that just puts more emotion behind whatever's gonna happen between these two later on down the line. So yeah, Master Chief bones the shit out of Mackie, but then after that shit's NyQuil and knocks his ass out, she goes over here to the sink and starts pulling out in a really nasty fucking scene, by the way, the fingernail that has the little laser sword that I said, how the hell have they not seen this thing? Well, apparently it's like a device in her finger, and it's like part of her finger, and she rips it out. It's really fucking nasty. If you got a fingernail thing like me, you're gonna be grossed out by this scene. But yeah, she takes that out, you know, holds it all in, blood and all that, and washes it down the drain. No longer has little sword fingers. This kind of signifies to us that she is starting to come over to our side. She says, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm starting to see the good in humans. I want to be on this side now with John. So it does signify also to us that what's happening here is genuine, at least from her perspective. But this is a TV show, so of course this is not going to end well for everybody. Also, during all of these events, we also have Miranda, who has been working on that voice translation that they got from that ship like in episode 3, I think, maybe even 2, that got attacked by Mackie and the hunter slugs and like killed everybody. If you remember in the end of that episode, she sent out a transmission to her people in their language telling them, I can't even remember what, but she sent out a transmission herself, and that was intercepted by the UNSC, and they've had a really hard time cleaning it up and understanding what it's saying. They've been saying it's this weird dialect, it sounds odd, we can't figure it out. Throughout this episode, Miranda has been focusing on this thing again, so of course we know, since we're coming to the end of the show, she's probably about to figure out that it was Mackie, especially since things are starting to go well for her and Chief and all that. I'm sure she's gonna figure out that, oh shit, that was Mackie, and that's gonna throw a monkey wrench in everything, and wouldn't you know it, that's what happens. The Chief gathers up Mackie to go and meet with Captain Keyes, Miranda Keyes, and the Admiral and everybody so they could do this thing with the artifact and figure out where the Covenant are. And on their way there, a lot of shit starts to happen. This is when Miranda realizes, holy shit, that's Mackie's voice, it's her, oh no, and she runs off to tell everybody. Also, this is when Halsey decides to put her master plan into effect, and she calls on the other Spartans to immobilize and go get the Chief and Mackie. She initializes some kind of like fucking Order 66 shit that only they will listen to her now. She says everyone else has been compromised, none of them can be trusted, you can only listen to me now. So she gets Vanek, Riz, and Kai to go and get Master Chief. Of course though, Kai, not having her little pellet control thing in her spine anymore, starts saying, hey guys, this doesn't seem quite right. Are we sure we want to go get the Chief? He wouldn't do this. Something's off here. And Halsey tells Vanek and Riz, take that bitch out, and they knock her the fuck out in like the most brutal ass way and handcuff her to a fucking bed in their barracks or something. She has Cortana cut off all communication around the base so nobody can communicate and start locking doors, and she's preparing for Cortana to shut the Chief down when they get to Vanek and Riz, and also apparently take his body over and control him from now on. Apparently that was their plan all along, and she tells Cortana, this is what you've wanted, right? Clearly though, throughout the episode, we see that Cortana is having second thoughts here. Now Cortana is an electronic device essentially, but she is an AI, so she is an artificial intelligence. She has her own thoughts, and clearly those thoughts are coming into play now, and she doesn't agree with this. Because when it's time and Halsey says, Cortana, shut down the Chief, Cortana's just not fucking there. In fact, Cortana has contacted the Chief in his head, because you know that's where she resides, and says, hey, you're being set up, turn around, do not go that way, they're coming to get you. So Chief sends Mackie off and he gets ready to battle his comrades, and that is what happens. We get a pretty fucking cool battle scene between Spartans. Unfortunately for the Chief though, Vanek and Riz are in armor and he is not, so that does put him in a bit of a handicap, and he is a badass and he holds his own, but he kind of gets his ass kicked a bit. Fortunately for him though, Kai is able to break loose and come and help him out in a pretty badass scene where she comes and kicks a little bit of ass and helps out as well. Now while that is going on, Mackie has run to where the artifact and Keyes and Miranda and everybody are to tell them, hey, no, stop, help the Chief, he's in trouble. And right around this time when they're like, what's going on? Miranda shows up and she's like, no, that bitch, her voice was on the thing. And she's like, okay, wait, no, I had no choice, then maybe do it. Big misunderstanding like these shows are, you know how it is, everybody's freaking the fuck out. So then the guard pulls out a stun baton and starts like shocking the shit out of her. She has flashbacks from when she was a kid, and now all of a sudden she's like, all right, these motherfuckers, you fucking humans, you are all like, fuck all of you, I hate you, I'm done with it. They pick her up and they're like, you're out of here and bad stuff's gonna happen to you. And she's like, no, fuck off. And she's right next to the fucking artifact. What's she do? She grabs that motherfucker, shockwave goes out, blows everybody the fuck away, and blows her and the Chief back to the Halo ring. I guess it's a shared vision thing again. And she tells him, hey, John, sorry man, but goodbye. peace, love, chicken grease. And he's like, no! And then he comes back to reality where his ass has been just thoroughly whooped and passes the fuck out. And that is where the episode ends. Okay, so this is definitely a better episode than last week's episode was. That being said, there are some things in this episode, some very particular things that I'm sure some people are going to just fucking hate and tear apart. But you cannot deny that this episode was at least better than last week's because it at least follows up the story that we've been interested in up to this point. Now, what did I think of it? Overall, I did enjoy the episode. There's really only one thing that I'm kind of on the fence about. And yeah, it's probably the one thing that a lot of people are either going to be on the fence about or just fucking hate. I don't think there's gonna be many that love it, honestly. It's gonna kind of be one of those two. And that's the Master Chief getting all pimp daddy and smashing that shit. I don't know why, it just doesn't sit right with me. I get it, I am not that dense. In the games, of course, we never saw that. The games all take place during combat time. He's always in the outfit, he's in combat. Of course he's not going out and having romantic relationships and fucking people during that time. I mean, if people do that, you do you, whatever, but it makes sense why it doesn't. I'm sure in at least the extended materials or whatever, at some point in time he has had some type of romantic relationship, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm sure this human being, regardless of how many implants and things he's had done to him, at some point in his life will be involved in some type of relationship. It's just human chemistry. But even knowing that, I have to admit, seeing this character do this in the show, while admittedly they didn't focus on it too much for sure, they just more or less give you the impression that's what just happened. It did seem a little off. I mean, it didn't encompass a huge amount of the show, but still, while I understand it, and I guess I don't have a problem with it on the surface, there is just something that I didn't love about it. Like I mentioned earlier, I understand why they did it. I know why they wanted to get these characters so emotionally involved with each other. Do I think that they necessarily needed to sleep with each other for that to happen? No, not so much, not really. I mean, just because people fuck doesn't mean they have that much of an emotional connection. I get that these characters do, and I suppose in movies and TV, it's easier to show it that way, but I don't think that that necessarily is the only way or has to happen to show a deep emotional connection with someone. But that is the direction they chose to go here, and I do understand why, and I do see it as a viable way, especially within the universe that they've created here. But like I said, whether it makes sense or not, there is something about it that doesn't 100% sit with me right. Did it ruin the episode in the show for me? No, but it doesn't change the fact that it still didn't 100% sit right with me. I know it doesn't make sense with the way that I've explained that I feel about this stuff, but it doesn't have to make sense. It's the way I feel. My feelings don't have to fucking make sense. They are what they are. Now beyond that, I did enjoy this episode. I thought it gave us a lot of good stuff, and it moved at a lightning fast fucking pace. I mean, this episode like starts and goes really fast. The episode really wasn't any shorter than any of the other episodes in the series so far, but it seemed like the shortest one. It moves so quick and so much stuff happens and is given to us. I really enjoyed this tape. There was no fat here. They just bam, 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 bam are constantly giving you information. So much stuff is happening. They are really getting ready for this final episode and the big thing that's gonna happen. I was honestly surprised that right at the end of the episode, we didn't see the Covenant ships come out of slip space travel and like that's going to be where the next episode begins. Because I really figured this big conflict, whatever it may be, that's going to be in the next episode, I'm sure, was gonna take up the entire episode. Surely the last episode is going to be a big to-do thing and not just kind of a real low-key affair. Surely, right? Well, I don't know as of right now, but I assume it's going to be, and it does seem like they are building to something really big. And this episode overall was a great precursor to that something really big. Now, other things I liked about the episode. Kai, I am really starting to like this character. The way they utilized her in this episode, while she wasn't in a ton of it, what we did get of her, I really enjoyed the character. I hope that she stays on for next season. While she is a bit of a dumbass with her feelings since she took that pellet out, I still really do like the character. Also, Mackie. This is a character that initially I wasn't in love with. I never really hated the character, but I didn't see her point, and she just seemed like a character that was there just to be there. Now she's actually getting a purpose, not only a purpose, but some layers, some depth. And that's how I like my characters. I like my characters to be interesting, layered, and have depth. And this character is finally getting some of that. She's starting to come into her own, and I do think that she is going to be one of the main antagonists, or at least on up there later on in this series. Maybe not this season, but definitely next season. Also, the hand-to-hand battle that we get between the Spartans in the end, that was pretty badass. And it's pretty cool to see the Chief just fighting them hand-to-hand, having the handicap of not having his armor on, and just using what is around him in his environment to defend himself. It was a really cool, exciting scene. And when Kai came in to essentially save the day, that was a pretty badass moment as well. Overall, I enjoyed this episode, and I am still enjoying this series, and we got one episode to go until the end of this season. I got high hopes for this last episode. There are some things that I totally expect to happen in this episode. This needs to be a big, bombastic, awesome episode to send this season off. This episode needs to be that thing that puts that perfect cherry on the top of this season, because if they go out with a whimper instead of a bang, it is going to resonate throughout the entire series. Please, 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 Halo showrunners, you've done fairly well up to this point, and in some cases you've done really good. You've had some trip-ups, you've had some missteps. Please don't fuck up on the last episode. Make it awesome, make it big, make it fucking huge and badass. You do that and I'm a happy man, but we'll find out next week, I guess. As far as this episode though, yeah, I think it's absolutely worth checking out. So there it is, guys, my review of Halo, the series, episode 8. Allegiance. If you enjoyed and want more content like this, hit the subscribe button and help my little channel grow. If you want to help out the channel, check out my Patreon in the description below, become a jarhead and get some of the awesome benefits to go along with that, like these guys, and possibly join my top tier and become a bad motherfucker like my man Dragon Khan, Marge G, and Silverlock. If you liked what I had to say, give me a like. If not, let me know in the comments below why. And as always, stay sexy, agate.
Silver team, on me.
So those of you that did watch my episode 1 review of Halo the series may remember in the end I spoke about a character from the series that had not shown up in this series yet, but I was sure that this character had to show up. And that character, of course, would be the always awesome Sergeant Johnson. And I just gotta say, we are on episode 8 now, going into 9, and Sergeant Johnson still ain't there. Maybe he'll show up when they actually get to the Halo ring. I mean, I could deal with that. Like, maybe he'll show up if they ever have the Pillar of Autumn, which is a ship within that world. That's when he'll show up, because that's when he showed up in the game. So if they're gonna wait till then, I'll give him that. I'll let him have that, even if that is in like the beginning of season 2. It's okay, I will submit and give them that. Either that, or I'm just moving the goalpost. I don't know, but I'll give them that. But one thing is for sure, Sergeant Johnson better fucking show up at some point.